People talk about China versus Taiwan like a countdown. Like one morning you wake up and it is war. That is not how this usually works. This is a pressure system. Pressure systems move through patterns, politics, posture, logistics, signals, so we do it the disciplined way. What happened with dates? Why it matters in mechanisms. What to watch as signals. What happened? January 13th, 2024, Taiwan held its presidential election. Lai Ching-te won for the Democratic Progressive Party. First time one party won 3 straight presidential terms in Taiwan's modern system. That did not trigger war overnight, but it hardened narratives. Beijing framed it as a dangerous direction. Taipei framed it as democratic continuity. May 20th, 2024. Lai Ching-te was sworn in. New administration. New tone. Same core contradiction. China says Taiwan is part of China. Taiwan operates as self-governing. The US supports Taiwan's ability to defend itself. Without formal recognition, those positions do not reconcile. So competition becomes pressure. From mid-2024 onward, the pressure became more routine and measurable. More air activity, more maritime activity, more legal and political messaging, not always dramatic, but constant. Here is the first point people miss. You do not need open war to change reality. You can change reality through repetition. A sortie today, a patrol tomorrow, a drone flight next week, a Coast Guard boarding next month. Over time, the baseline shifts. What looked provocative becomes normal. And what looked normal starts to feel weak. January 22nd, 2025. Taiwan reported undersea cable disruptions affecting the Matsu Islands area. Taiwan activated backup communications. This matters because it shows a different category of pressure. Not missiles, not jets. Connectivity. Undersea cables are infrastructure. They are also strategic. If you can disrupt communications, you can increase panic. Slow decision-making. Create confusion without a single shot. Confusion is leverage in a crisis. December 29th and December 30th, 2025, China's Eastern Theater Command ran large-scale joint exercises around Taiwan. Air and sea activity. Ground support elements. Analysts also pointed to rocket force involvement. The key word from that period is blockade, because there are ways to use force without calling it an invasion. A full invasion is expensive. It is also hard to hide. A blockade-style operation can be partial, gradual, framed as law enforcement, escalated step by step. That is why those late December drills matter. They normalize a menu of coercive options. Now the early 2026 layer, February 24th, 2026. Reporting said Taiwan's parliament would discuss a stalled special defense budget on March 6th, 2026. This looks like domestic politics, but it is strategic. Deterrence is not only weapons. Deterrence is decision speed. If Taiwan cannot fund capabilities smoothly, Beijing notices. If politics looks gridlocked under pressure, Beijing notices. If Taiwan looks divided when the threat is obvious, Beijing notices. Then February 26, 2026. Reporting described Chinese military drone flights using deceptive transponder signals. Flights that appeared to mask identity and confuse observers. This matters because deception is not a side detail. Deception is preparation. In a real crisis, confusion slows response. Confusion creates false alarms. Confusion delays clear decisions. So the sequence is not a countdown to war. It is a map of pressure. Election, inauguration, connectivity incidents, blockade-style drills, defense budget friction, deception in the air picture, why it matters. China versus Taiwan is not only about two governments. It sits on 4 fault lines. Semiconductors, shipping lanes, alliance credibility, and the precedent of changing borders by force. So it rarely stays local in impact. Even the fear of disruption can move markets. Even a limited crisis can shake supply chains. To understand escalation risk, you need the playbook. 3 pathways dominate: invasion, blockade, or quarantine. Gray zone pressure. Each has different signals, different costs, different political cover. First, invasion. A full invasion requires preparations you cannot fake for long. Fuel stockpiles, ammo stockpiles, transport ship readiness, medical and hospital readiness. Air defense posture shifts, command and control intensity changes. If that is happening, You will see a cluster of logistics and mobilization indicators, not one headline. A pile of measurable changes. It is the least ambiguous pathway. It is also the most expensive, high casualties risk, massive sanctions risk, severe economic shock risk, which leads to the second pathway, blockade or quarantine. This is the option many analysts watch because it can be scaled. A customs inspection campaign, a maritime safety zone, a temporary exercise area, a law enforcement operation. Each of these can restrict traffic without declaring war. And a blockade pressures Taiwan quickly. Shipping is life. Insurance is life. Confidence is life. A blockade also creates a dilemma for outside powers. Do you challenge it militarily? Do you escort commercial ships? Do you accept a new normal? Blockades force choices under time pressure. That is why blockade-focused drills matter so much. Third, gray zone pressure. This is the default most days. Air defense identification zone activity, Coast Guard patrols, maritime militia presence, drones, cyber probing, undersea cable incidents, economic pressure. The purpose is wear down readiness, exhaust responses, normalize presence in claims, keep pressure high without triggering an obvious red line. It shapes the environment before a bigger move. Now add the political triangle. Beijing's long-term objective is control over Taiwan, but timing is constrained by risk. Taipei's objective is to preserve de facto autonomy and its democratic system, but it is constrained by geography and limited strategic depth. Washington's objective is to deter force and preserve regional stability, but it is constrained by global commitments and escalation risk. Triangles become unstable when credibility is tested. That is where domestic politics becomes strategic. Taiwan's defense budget debate is not just accounting, it is a signal. Can Taiwan move fast? Can it fund capabilities? Can parties cooperate under pressure? If Taiwan looks slow and divided, pressure increases. If Taiwan looks urgent and unified, deterrence improves. Now add modern technology. The first battle in a Taiwan crisis may be the battle over information. Who sees what? Who believes what? Who reacts first? Who hesitates? That is why spoofing and deceptive transponders matter. That is why undersea cables matter. That is why cyber pressure matters. Delay is a weapon. If your picture is noisy, you hesitate. If your communications are degraded, you hesitate. If civilian networks panic, you hesitate. In a fast crisis, hesitation creates opportunity. What to watch? Do not look for one magic indicator. Look for clusters. Signal 1. Preparations you cannot fake. Sustained logistical buildup, unusual stockpiling, transport ship staging, medical readiness patterns, command intensity shifts. If those appear together, invasion risk rises. Signal 2. Blockade behavior, repeated disruption of commercial routes, inspections becoming routine, exclusion zones expanding, temporary drills turning into persistent restrictions. Watch a quiet metric. Insurance and freight. If war risk premiums spike and stay high, markets are telling you confidence is cracking. Signal 3. Coast Guard escalation, boardings, detentions, rules of engagement shifts, law enforcement framing near Taiwan. A Navy clash is obvious. A Coast Guard clash is politically usable. Signal 4. Information warfare intensity, spoofing, drone deception, cyber probing, disinformation bursts, connectivity incidents. If confusion events surge together, that can indicate rehearsal. Signal 5. Taiwan decision speed, defense funding approvals, procurement movement, training tempo, civil defense organization, cross-party coordination when pressure spikes. Signal 6. U.S. and partner posture, not just statements, material changes, exercises, deployments, pre-positioning, joint planning signals. Now step back. The most dangerous scenario is not always an instant invasion. It can be a managed squeeze. A quarantine-style operation, limited restrictions, a few incidents, a few accidents, a negotiation demand that forces everyone to choose under pressure. And while choices are debated, markets panic. So week by week, the right approach is simple. Measure the pressure. Watch for clusters that turn pressure into crisis. China versus Taiwan is not a countdown. It is a pressure system, And pressure systems only become storms when multiple signals rise together. Word count 933.